Hello. Earlier this week at class, I could tell you were a little anxious about your upcoming first confession, first reconciliation. And I told you I'd make you a brief video that you could look at multiple times so you understand the process. I told you I'd make it simple and short. First of all, let me congratulate you on making your first reconciliation. This is a wonderful sacrament offered by our church. So that's number one. So now, 3 easy things to remember. What you do first, what you do during, and what you do after. So first, to prepare for your reconciliation, whether it's your first or your 50th, you start with an examination of conscience. And that's just a fancy way of saying, sit down, think about your life. Think about your life over the past weeks and months, and think about the things you have done that have perhaps disappointed God, disappointed the people around you. Any sins that come to mind that you are sorry for. And you want to jot them down in your mind or on a piece of paper, whatever is easier for you. But really take the time to examine yourself. Think about how you have been living, what you don't like about what you've done. Think about the things you have done wrong, but also the things you've neglected to do, and write them down. A sin, I think the best definition of sin is things that go against God or that take us away from God, are contrary to God. For example, look at the 10 Commandments. Have you stolen anything? Have you lied? Have you treated your parents poorly? Have you coveted other things that other people have? How have you lived your life? Write down the things that you think you have done wrong, the things that are sins. Again, things that have taken you away from God or displeased God. And make a list of those things. And make sure they are things that, number one, you are sorry for. Number two, that you want to change and not do again. Because part of this thing we call reconciliation, this repenting, is not just apologize for what we've done wrong, but also make a sincere effort to not do them again. Now, God knows we're going to make mistakes and we're going to make the same mistakes, but it is our responsibility to try to be better, to try to change. So the first thing you do, examine your mind, examine your heart, think about the sins you have committed that you are very sorry for and that you want forgiveness for, and jot them down so you don't forget them. Again, jot them on your brain or on a piece of paper. So that's the first thing you do. The second is you actually make your confession. You go before the priest and you say these things. You start by saying, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." Why do you say that? You are acknowledging that you are a sinner. You're acknowledging your own humility. You're acknowledging the fact that you know you're not perfect and you want to be better. So you start off by saying, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," and then say how long it's been since your last confession. If it is your first confession, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is my first confession." If you were a person who has had many confessions, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been a week, 2 weeks, 10 years, 50 years since my last confession." Whatever it is, let the priest know. And then lastly, you say, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been such and such a time since my last confession," or "This is my first confession, and then here are my sins. These are the things that I want to be forgiven for." And then you tell the priest that list that you made when you examined your conscience. And you just give the priest that information as to the things you did wrong, the things that you want to be forgiven for, and that you want to change from. And once you have told the priest all of this, the priest will say a few things to you, sometimes maybe a comment or give you some instruction or maybe some thoughts on how you can be better. And then the priest will give you your penance. And the penance is usually some prayers, maybe an act of contrition, an Apostles' Creed, Hail Marys, Our Fathers, a rosary. But the priest will give you a penance that is somehow in line with what you have confessed. And then after that, the last thing you do, you leave the priest and you go to a quiet spot. If it's in a church, you go to a place on a pew or a chair, and you sit there and you're quiet, or you kneel, and then you do your penance. You say the prayers that the priest has given you. And as you're saying those prayers, you're thinking about how sorry you are for having committed them, and you are telling God, I will do my best to change and to not do these things again. If you make a good confession and you are honest about what you have told the priest, you should feel a bit lighter. Your spirit should feel lighter, because that burden, those sins have been erased from you. They have been lifted away from you, so you no longer are carrying that burden. And that's it, very simple. Before you go in, examine your conscience. When you go in before the priest, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been such and such since my last confession, or this is my first confession. Here are my sins, and I am looking forward to being forgiven and to changing, becoming a different person, and to acting better and differently. And remember, sins are not only what we've done, but what we've neglected to do. And then lastly, take the penance that's given to you by the priest and go to a quiet spot and say those prayers. Make that penance. I hope this helps. You can review this multiple times, and hopefully it will make it easy for you, especially those making your first confession. And again, I'm proud of you. Good job, well done.